Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a mid-year book tag. So it is currently the middle of July right now. So we are halfway through the year. Technically maybe a little bit more than halfway through the year, but this is fine, doesn't matter. I'm going to jump straight into it. First question is, how many books have you read this year? I've read 16 currently, but I'm hoping by the end of July I would have read 19 or 20. So yeah, the next one is, I am looking like this way to look at my questions, by the way. Best book you've read in 2024. I've actually got two for this, and that is Powerless by Lauren Roberts and As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. These two I read both. I wanted to read this and I've had it literally since it was released, but I didn't read it until recently because I read it for a video. And then Powerless, I wanted to read it, like it was on my radar, but I wasn't 100% sure if I wanted to read it or not because it is a little bit different to my usual genre and what I usually go for, because it is romantasy rather than just a romance, and I like romance, mysteries, thrillers, that sort of thing. So Powerless was a little bit out there for me and I absolutely loved it. So these two, it was really hard to pick two because I feel like this year has been a really good reading year, but I don't want to like pick more than two for this question, if that makes sense, because I feel like it's just gonna end up being half of the books that I've read this year, because like I said, this year's just been a really good reading year. So these two are the best books that I've read so far this year. The next question we have is a new release you haven't read yet but you want to, and that is Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. I love Ali Hazelwood's writing. I have all of her books currently, so I really want to read this. I have heard that this is a bit different to her usual, like, typical books, but I am still excited for this just because I know that Ali Hazelwood is just like an automatic buy. Whenever I see her books, it's just like an automatic purchase, if that makes sense. So, Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. So the next question is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. So I'm going to do this for books that are still like yet to be released, because Reckless would have been one of my answers for this. However, that came out about 10 days ago now, so technically it's already released, but that would have been one of my most anticipated releases had it not already been released by the time I'm filming this video. But I don't have the physical copy, obviously this isn't released yet, and that is Daydream by Hannah Grace. I'm currently reading Wildfire and I really enjoyed Icebreaker, so I'm very excited to obviously see the next book in the series. So it's the third book in the Maple Hills series, I think it's called, and I'm very excited to read it. Like I said, I really enjoyed Icebreaker. I'm currently reading Wildfire and I'm really enjoying it, so I just feel like I would enjoy Daydream as well. The cover is just beautiful, so I can't wait to have the physical copy as well. The next question is biggest surprise. So I'm gonna go with Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I know I already said this, but I feel like I can not put this as the answer, my answer for this question, because like I said earlier, this was very out there for me. Not like very out there, but just very non-typical of me. And I absolutely love this to pieces. I ended up rating this 5 stars, which is just very good. I literally haven't stopped thinking about it since I finished it, which was over a month ago. I just love the cover, is so beautiful. I just felt like I was so immersed in the world and the characters that I got so invested in what was going on, the story and all this and that. So this definitely is my biggest surprise of the year, so far at least. The next question is favourite author, debut or new to you? And I've got two answers for this one. One of them is Lauren Roberts. Obviously, spoke about Powerless twice so far in the video, but Lauren Roberts, and Powerless was her debut novel, I'm pretty sure. So she is debut but also new to me. And then my other one is Elsie Silver. I read Flawless a couple weeks ago, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I absolutely loved it, and now I want to read every single Elsie Silver book ever. And then books that made me happy, again, Flawless, and this was my first like cowboy romance as well. Flawless is the first book in the Chestnut Springs series, and it made me happy. It was such a good read, and I loved the characters, again, the world. Like, I literally want to go to Chestnut Springs, just like go into the book and travel to Chestnut Springs, because I just would have a great time living in that world. And then the next book is Ghosted by J.M. Darhauer. I read this one for a video as well, and I feel like it's a book that I never heard of before until I was doing my research for the book that I filmed. I read YouTuber's 5-star reads, so it was Sara's book, like her 5-star read, and I don't think I would have picked this up if it wasn't for that. Not because I didn't think it sounded any good, but I just feel like it got put on my radar because of that book, and I haven't ever seen anyone else mention it or talk about it. And then The Most Beautiful Book You've Bought This Year or Received This Year, and I'm going to have to say just the whole series, they're all just beautiful covers, which is why I wanted them rather than getting them on my Kindle, because the covers are just absolutely gorgeous. By this question, I'm doing it based off of the covers. I know a book can be beautiful in terms of like the actual work, the actual writing. I'm going off of covers for this. And then we've got books that you need to read by the end of this year, and I've got quite a few for this one because I have such a big TBR and so many physical books as well as books that I want to read like on my Kindle, whether it's on Kindle Unlimited or actually like borrowing or buying the book. But I'm gonna do non-fiction first because I also have quite a few non-fiction books. I'm trying to get through them as well. I do like to read non-fiction. Fiction is my favourite, but non-fiction I do like to read as well. So the first book we have, and I've actually been reading this since March, and I haven't picked it up for quite a while, if I'm being honest, but that is The 4-Hour Workweek by Timothy Ferris. And I've got this really cute bookmark that I made it right now, and it actually matches my headband. Well, it's the same colours. But I started reading this in March, and I've kind of just been picking it up as and when. I read it a lot when I was in Wales. We were just having like a cosy week away. I did have more time to do more non-fiction reading, whereas fiction reading is like my priority when I'm just like doing like day-to-day life, if that makes sense. But I feel like this is such a popular book. I'm on page 238 and there's 376 pages left, so I've got a little over 100 pages, and I feel like I could definitely finish this by the end of the year if I actually sit down and read some non-fiction. So I'm gonna try like read non-fiction every Monday morning, just when I do like my beginning of the week sort of like thing. So this one needs to be read. And then the other non-fiction book that I have that I want to read by the end of the year, and both of these are books I have started reading. Like I was just saying, I have started reading both of these, and that is Sacred Seasons by Kirsty Gallagher. Love how gorgeous this cover is. And this is one of like the few hardbacks that I own, but I'm currently on page 106, and there is, so how pretty is that? On page 106, and there's 224 pages, not including acknowledgements, for both of those books. Yeah, I've got, again, just a little over 100 pages left of this one. I really am enjoying this so far, but like I said, I just don't tend to pick up non-fiction as much as I pick up fiction. So again, I can definitely finish these two non-fiction reads by the end of the year. I just need to actually sit down and make the time for reading them. I think it's just because I don't gravitate towards non-fiction the same way that I gravitate towards fiction, if that makes sense. Again, like reading is an escape for me, like it's to get away from the world, not reading about it even more, if that makes sense. Obviously it depends on like the book, but obviously like this one is very much finance and work career based, and I'm just not always in the mood to be reading that. Okay, so the fiction books that I need to read by the end of the year, there's a few of these, quite a few that I really want to read by the end of the year. However, I'm just going to talk about the ones that I like are my main priorities. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so we've got 7, and a few of these are physical ones, a few of them are ones that I'll get on my Kindle. But these are like my priorities, like I have to read them. Not I have to, but like that's my intention, if that makes sense. And then this also isn't going to include any that I'm reading for videos, if that makes sense, because there is quite a few that I want to read for videos. However, I'm not going to include them in this just because like that's not just for my personal reading, if that makes sense. So the first two, if you haven't guessed it already, because I have already shown them in the video, and that is Powerful and Reckless, both by Lauren Roberts. This is a novella and this runs at the same timeline as Powerless. It is just from Adina's perspective, who is Payton's best friend, and Payton is the main character in Powerless. So Powerful, beautiful sprayed edges. I really want to read this. I'm really excited to read it, and I've had it since my birthday, but I'm just like, I didn't want to jump straight into it after Powerless. I wanted to like have time to sit there and think about Powerless and then go into Powerful. And then we've got Reckless, again, beautiful sprayed edges. The Works is really just like up their game recently with the sprayed edges, especially like for new releases. I wish my copy of Powerless had sprayed edges like this rather than just a solid colour, but I don't think the Works did a sprayed edges edition of Powerless when I got my copy, if that makes sense. So absolutely beautiful. I think I prefer this cover to Powerless. It's just so pretty. But again, Powerless kind of ends on a cliffhanger, so I need to read this, but I feel like I should read Powerful before I read this. So again, absolutely gorgeous. I cannot wait to read this. And then next up we have Not in Love or Love Theoretically, both by Ali Hazelwood. I really want to read both of these by the end of the year, and hopefully I will. However, because I don't want to like overload myself, and I'm trying to be like semi-realistic here, because I have a couple months left of my summer holidays and then I'll be going back to uni, so I'm gonna get probably the main chunk of these books read over my summer holidays, and then I'll be back at uni, so I'm not going to have as much time to read. So I'm trying to be like semi-realistic of how much I can read over the next couple months. But like I said, ideally I'll read both of these by the end of the year, but we'll see. I am leaning more towards Love Theoretically, just because this one I've had for longer and I've wanted to read it for longer than Not in Love, because I just picked this up because like it was a new release. And I know I love Ali Hazelwood, so I'm leaning towards Love Theoretically, but we will see. And then the next two, these are the last two physical copies. This is, again, I want to read both of them, but if I only read one, that's okay sort of situation, and that is Open Road Summer and The Map from Here to There, both by Emery Lord. These books are, this author, I read The Start of Me and You, and that is one of the books that got me back into reading when I was like 14, 15. I'm like 99% sure that this is a sequel to The Start of Me and You. And then Open Road Summer, this was on my summer TBR because it's in the name. But again, these are like YA teen age, so they are a little bit younger for me, but I have had them for years. I'm pretty sure these are the last two books by this author at least like on the backlist that's written here, these are the last 2 books by this author that I haven't read yet. So I really want to read these. I think like I thought about doing a book recommendations for teens, because there's so many books that got me back in, like, I say there's so many books, but there's so many books that I loved reading when I was younger. I'm 21 now, so I don't read as much like teen or YA, but because I love this author and I've had these sitting on my shelf for years, I am going to read them. That's the last of my physical books. And then let me just get up. I need the internet right now. So the next book that I really want to read by the end of the year is one by Hannah Bonham Young. So again, I just want to read one, like that's my goal, but I would love to read a few. So the one that I think I'll probably read first is Out on a Limb. This has been on my list to read for, I think, like since it first came out, which was just over a year ago now. And then I also want to read Next of Kin. They're like my main 2 by this author that I want to read, but my goal is probably going to be Out on a Limb. And then my last one, which is technically 2, is Wild Love or Heartless by Elsie Silver. Again, like I said, I want to read all of Elsie Silver's books now, so I'm either going to read Heartless, which is the next book in the Chestnut series, the Chestnut Spring series. I've read the first one. In fact, I'm pretty sure Heartless is the second book in the series, but I did Google it to check, so I might be wrong. But whatever the next book is in the series, I want to read that, or Wild Love. Again, if I could read both of these, I would love that, but my goal is to read either or, one of those 2. Part of me wants to continue the Chestnut Spring series because it just makes sense, but also I really want to read Wild Love because it's kind of like a newish release. I think it came out in April or something, towards the beginning of the year, so it's relatively new still, and I think the next one comes out next year. I'm not entirely sure. What? Okay, so Wild Love is the first book in the Rose Hill series by Elsie Silver, and then Wild Eyes comes out on September 3rd. Okay, now I don't know. Now I'm like, do I want to read Wild Love so that then when Wild Eyes comes out, I can read that like straight away? I don't know, I really don't know. I really want to just read everything on my TBR now, but we will see if that happens. But that is all for, oh no, it's not all for today. We've still got 3 more questions. Okay, so how many 5-star reads this year? And so far I have 4 5-star reads, and that is Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood, Ghosted by J.M. Darhauer, As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson, and Powerless by Lauren Roberts. Again, I've spoken about most of those books, so I'm not going to go into it now. But I feel like I got my first 5-star, literally was the first book I read in January, or the second book I read in January, and I feel like that's made me more like excited to find more 5-star reads, if that makes sense. And I've got quite a few so far this year. Definitely, I don't know if I even had any last year, and I think I had maybe 2 or 3 the year before, so we are off to a great start this year. Even if I don't have any more 5-star reads for the rest of the year, we've still got a good few for this year. And then books that I want to reread this year. So because I have so many books that are on my TBR for this year and that I would like to read this year, my TBR are just like the ones that I'm prioritizing, whereas the other ones I want to read are just books that I would like to read, if that makes sense. So I don't have any that I really want to reread this year. However, I do want to reread After the Fire by Will Hill, which is a book that I will talk about until I die, because it is, again, one of the books that got me back into reading, and I wanted to reread it as kind of like a researching thing to do with a book that I'm writing. So I do want to reread it, and like annotate it and just like kind of use it for research, but it isn't like a priority because there are a few other books I would like to read for the research, and I think I'm going to prioritize them over a book that I've already read, if that makes sense. And I have reread it before as well, so I have read it 2 or 3 times, so I am quite familiar with the story. So it isn't a priority, but if I do a reread this year, it will most likely be After the Fire. And then the last question is, what are your 5-star predictions for the rest of the year? I am very excited about this because I feel like the only book that I'm predicting is going to be 5 stars for me is Reckless by Lauren Roberts, and this is because I gave Powerful 5 stars. I didn't give it 5 stars straight away. I thought it was going to be like a 4.5, and then I was like, no, I think 4.75, and then because I just haven't stopped thinking about this book since I finished it, I gave it 5 stars. So I feel like I'm trying not to get my hopes up in case I just don't enjoy this as much, but I really hope this is 5 stars, and I'm thinking it will be because, like I said, I just love like this world so much and the characters that I feel like it's going to be 5 stars. But we'll see because I don't want to get my hopes up too much, and I think I'll enjoy Powerful as well, but again, like I'm not necessarily thinking it's going to be 5 stars. So that is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you did enjoy the video. Let me know which book you want to read by the end of this year in the comments down below.